It is week 6, and the theme of this module is modern allusions. And it is time to examine how ancient myth has influenced so many things in our world today. Now, we're not going to specifically look at fairy tales and modern myth because that's going to come later, but how myth is continuously showing up in many different venues in the modern world. Now, allusion is a word that is often confused with illusion. One has an A and one has an I, and they are totally different. The base word for allusion is to allude or to refer to something. And illusion, of course, is something that just isn't there, that we see or we believe, but it doesn't exist. But allusions do exist. And modern media, our films, our books, our everyday life consistently refer to or depend on ancient myth. Now, I have in the a picture on the module in the module area. I refer to the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And that movie is a perfect example of a mythic allusion. It is not a modern myth. It is not a fairy tale. It is an allusion to myth. And by that, I mean that the entire movie is based on Homer's The Odyssey. And we see this in many different ways. Of course, it differs. It's in a modern setting, yes. And Odysseus was never a prisoner. He never pretended to be a lawyer, as does Everett McGill in the movie. But Ulysses, which Ulysses is the Latin word for Odysseus, but other aspects are pure Odyssey. It begins with the blind poet, Homer, who in the movie is a black man, and we see at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie, and from there it just goes uphill or downhill or wraps itself up in allusions to the Odyssey. We have a Cyclops, and John Goodman plays that, and he has one eye, and he takes advantage of Ulysses. We have the Sirens, and in the Odyssey, Odysseus has his men on the boat stuff their ears full of wax, so they won't hear the call of the sirens, but he can experience it. His wife's name is Penny, and Odysseus's wife was named Penelope. Now, there's a twist here with Penny, because in the original story, she was extremely faithful to Odysseus and put off suitors for 20 years, refusing to marry one, whereas Penny in the movie has found that bona fide man that she plans to marry. And I just watched this movie again last week, so it's all fresh in my mind. But it is all an allusion to the Odyssey. And we have other allusions to other ancient myth in other movies. Star Wars consistently alludes to the heroic adventure. And in a way, it is a modern myth because it creates its own characters and its own tale, but still it alludes to those ancient myths. Our culture is permeated. We've talked about language. We've talked about other aspects. And we just can't get away from ancient myth in our modern society. Another film that has been very popular, which is also an allusion, though not mythic allusion, but still is an allusion, and it will demonstrate how this works, is The Lion King. And The Lion King is an allusion to Shakespeare's Hamlet. You have a young cob, Hamlet, whose position is usurped by his uncle, and he has to find a way to restore himself to the kingship and the power there. So there's nothing new, folks. We recycle, we adapt, we adopt, and there's just really nothing new under the sun, which is, of course, from Ecclesiastes. And the stories have remained the same since we told them. Now, this week we have a discussion, not a discussion. We have a discussion in which we are going to discuss illusions. And there is also a journal entry on drama, etc., etc. I had to look. And I'm going to post another video later in the week discussing this journal because there are some aspects that I want to make clear and some examples that I want to give. And I don't want to do that in this video because if I do, it's going to wind up being 20 minutes again. And I know you don't want to sit through it. And I don't really want to, well, okay. I say I really don't want to talk that long, but I don't care if I talk that long. I could talk for an hour and not slow down. So, on to modern allusions in myth. And be thinking about this, be thinking of things that you have witnessed, movies you've seen, books you have read that are direct reflections of ancient myths. By the way, I will add one more thing. I have talked about Demeter's search for Persephone in discussions, and I'm pretty sure that I've mentioned it in videos for the various weeks. Demeter's search for Persephone is an allusion to the older myth of Isis searching for Osiris. Now, I'm not going to go into the details again because I know I discussed how these searches are alike. So these allusions to preceding myths have been going on for literally thousands of years. Wow. I'm going to stop there, and I will see you in the discussion, and I'm quiet.